Hi there, this is Nathan Lehman at the Ultra Running Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we really appreciate you tuning in for another shoe review. Today we're going to be looking at the Hoka Cavu 3, the third generation in their Cavu line, which is really what they would consider their starter Hoka. We don't think it's much of a starter shoe at all. In fact, we think it's actually a very nice evolution of the Cavu. But let's dig right in and look at it from the Ultra Running Company's metrics. The Cavu 3 is a high drop comfort cushion road running shoe. And that actually needs a little bit of digging into because we've come up with some different thoughts on this than Hoka talks about. So let's jump right in. First of all, let's look at the comfort cushion of this shoe. What does that mean? It just means that there's a lot of rubber underneath your foot. In Hoka's case, this is really a thick one-piece rubber here that goes to a longer wearing bit of rubber on the heel of the shoe and on the forefoot of the shoe. You can see where it changes colors. This white section and the white section that goes throughout the entire midsole is what they refer to as ProFly. And the reason that they call it that is they've engineered it to be a little bit softer in the heel and springier in the forefoot. Now, we've cut up some of these shoes and we don't see any material difference. So what they're doing is allowing it probably to expand a little bit more in the heel and a little bit less in the front, or perhaps compressing it a little bit more in the front. We're not exactly sure how we do it, but for the first time in the Cavu 3, we can really feel a difference between the heel and the forefoot of this shoe. Hoka designs it that way so that if you do strike with your heel, if you land like this, you're going to get a little bit more compression and potentially some protection from the forces associated with that heel strike. As you transition through the center of your foot and towards your toes, Hoka wants you to have a little bit more pop on your takeoff, and so they make this a little bit firmer, a little bit denser in the front to really give you that spring. Now the gray cushion in the back here is really a little bit longer wearing than the white portion, and it's going to be the same in the heel and in the toe. So it's just there for abrasion resistance. It is still a mix of a traditional tread rubber and traditional midsole rubber. You may see some wear develop on this pretty quickly, but that's okay. You can run all the way through it and it'll feel just as good and give you just as much traction. Again, going to that comfort portion of this, the reason we say comfort on this is that Hoka advertises this shoe, as they did with the Cavu 2, as having a 20mm forefoot stack height, which is the stack height is just the amount of cushion underneath your foot, and a 26mm heel. Now, we consistently measured the Cavu and the Cavu 2 as having 20 and 26mm, which meant they had a 5mm drop. Now, the really interesting portion here is when you go over about 24 to 26mm of cushion, that's when we're going to get into that comfort feel, something that's really more pillowy. And that's well above what Hoka advertises. Now, when we measure this shoe, we get substantially different measurements. So for us, we're measuring 22mm in the forefoot and 30mm in the heel. Why is that a big deal? Well, it takes the drop of that shoe, and the drop is that angle between the heel and the toe. It takes that drop from 5mm to 6mm. Which isn't a huge deal, but at the Ultra Running Company, we consider shoes that have 6mm as being a high drop shoe, and shoes with 3 to 5mm as being a low drop shoe. So our differences in measurement mean that this moves up a category for us. Here's the really interesting thing though. We measure our stack heights without the insole. And so if you take the insole out of this shoe, This insole, it's really just kind of a styrofoam insole. This is not one of the highest quality insoles that Hoka puts in the shoe, and we'll talk about that when we get to the price point. But it is a 4mm insole. It's just a nice little cushion. It's got a little bit of rigidity to it, but 4mm in the back, 4mm in the front, which means that when you take our 22-30 measurement, you're going to add 4mm to that, and that takes it up to 26mm in the forefoot and 34mm in the heel. That's a really cushioned shoe. So we really feel like while Hoka's advertising this the same way, it is dynamically different than any of the Cavus before. Now, as I mentioned, this is also the first one where we've really felt that pillowy feel in the heel. If you're taking a longer stride and you like to feel that, this shoe is going to be much more appealing to you than the Cavu 1 or 2. Now, super interesting is the fact that they essentially put in right around 6mm more cushion in this shoe across the whole thing than the Cavu and the Cavu 2 had, but the weight on this shoe is exactly the same. So this is a very, very lightweight shoe. It's one of those shoes that when we pick them up in the back, sometimes we have to check the box to make sure there are 2 in there. Hoka advertises the women's as being a 5.2 ounce shoe and the men as being a 6.9 ounce shoe. As I've always said, those are sample sizes, and I'm not a sample size. And so when you look at those really, really low numbers, in my size 13, I'm never going to see a 6.9 shoe that has this much cushion on it. At least I haven't seen it yet. In a size 13, which is the size of my boats, this is still a 9 ounce shoe. So it's really fantastic to have a 34mm heel cushion and a 26mm forefoot cushion and be well under 10 ounces. One of the lighter shoes that we've enjoyed. So big deal there. How do they do that? Well, I'm sure some of it's in the midsole. Some of it as well is in the new upper of the shoe, which is this fabric part on top. This has gone to a kind of a woven knit, but a single piece woven throughout the entire shoe. That's really unique for us. We've not seen that on a Hoka in the past. What that means is the shoe goes from midsole all the way over to the other midsole in one piece. What you'll notice here, while there's some cosmetic design of a tongue, there's no real tongue on this shoe. It's just a flap that goes over. What you get though is a stretchy material. It stretches more here in the middle than it will here on the outside, just due to the way that they've knitted it. And so you're able to slide your foot in. It kind of clamps around it, and then you tie it up. Now, a couple of major issues about that. One, we suspect folks with a very high instep might have a little bit more trouble getting into this shoe just because there's not a tongue to pull out. We don't see that often, but we do see a good number of people come through the store with a relatively high instep. Think about that if that's been an experience for you. Second of all, these laces, while not cosmetic, are laced entirely differently. They actually don't go back and forth like most laces do. What they'll do is they'll come across, move up, go across, move up, go across, move back. So when you first put your foot in this shoe, it's going to be a little bit different tying experience. What we find is the shoe fits snugly around your instep, almost no matter what type of instep you have. When you pull the laces, you're going to cinch them from the bottom to the top, and it's really going to lock your foot in there. Folks that don't like a snug shoe over their instep are probably not going to be super excited about the way this is designed. Folks that like that kind of more athletic fit, more designed right to their foot, are really going to appreciate this. And frankly, once you tie it in place, you may not need to untie and tie this shoe all the time. That's pretty on trend, but it's pretty unique in a performance shoe. As far as the toe box goes, it's pretty generous. It's pretty high up, so you're going to have volume both in height and in width. As always, the bottom of the Hoka is going to be nice and wide, so it's a very stable shoe side to side with the Hoka bucket technology we've talked about in past reviews. Nothing completely unique here, so I'm not going to really fixate on that, but just know that when you put this on, despite the fact that it's a pretty flexible upper, you're going to have a very stable feel to it. Heel cup does have a little bit more of a heel counter than most Hokas have had in the past. It's firm when you push on it. Your foot's going to slide in. This is going to feel really familiar to folks that have run in Sauconys, something like a Triumph or something like that. A little bit more structure here in the heel. So if your heel is shaped like this shoe, it's going to feel fantastic. If if it's not, you're going to know that right when you put it on. So where do we go with this? Well, the nice thing about this, the Hoka Cavu, is it's about a $120 shoe. We've talked about that in our reviews before with Hokas. This is one of their lowest price point shoes, but it's still a runner shoe. You can certainly wear it all day and be comfortable, but it is kind of more dialed in than something like the Hupana, which we mostly use for kicking around, gym work, 3 to 5 mile runs. This shoe is much more capable of going 10K, 15K, half marathon, and still performing well for you while it does. If we look at this, how does this fit into Hoka's overall product approach? We think that this is a shoe that's going to be really appealing to first-time runners, folks coming out of other brands. We think that their original idea with the Cavu was to get more people looking at Hoka One One, not just the folks that wanted that wildly cushioned shoe. Cosmetically, we think this looks pretty good. We don't think anybody's going to be turning this down because they feel like it's just an absurd looking shoe, and probably skews a little bit younger. Certainly you can wear it at any age, but because of the aesthetics, because of that nice fit, because of the fact that you can just pull it on and kind of set it and forget it, we think that this is going to be a really nice kind of crossover shoe for Hoka. And so if you are an experienced runner and want to give it a shot, we're not trying to talk you out of it that way, but certainly folks that are just coming over are going to put this on. It's going to be super comfortable with that real pillowy feel in the heel, a little bit more spring in the front, and give them kind of a more dialed in running experience than they're probably used to with the shoes that they've gotten at perhaps discount stores, perhaps online. So we really think that this is a nice evolution for Hoka. We think it's a very quality product that comes out, and we'll be running quite a bit in it. So we hope you like that review. We are always available at ultrarunningcompany.com, helping you find shoes. Please try our shoe selector there. If you get a chance to give us a shot and want to buy something online, we always appreciate that. Please leave your questions and reviews. We do try and get to those, and we always appreciate the input. And if you don't mind subscribing to us here on YouTube, we really appreciate that too, because our understanding is that it gets more people looking at our reviews and asking us good questions. So thank you very much for tuning in today. Again, please visit us at www.ultrarunning.com for information about the store, information about these shoes, and links to both reviews and product sales. Thank you so much, and learn to love to run.